Hey everybody, we are back live with GTF Gabriel Talks Football. We just learned that Chase Claypool has been traded to the Chicago Bears by the Pittsburgh Steelers for a second round draft pick. And so immediately Greg said, let's get back on. And that's where we're at. Greg, your immediate reaction to Chase Claypool now being a Chicago Bear?
My immediate reaction is, wouldn't you know it? Like within 2 minutes of getting off, the trade happens. It never fails. That's like 2 weeks in a row. No, I love the trade. And in all honesty, we were doing the show before. I forgot about Claypool. You saw his name mentioned, but not a lot, not connected to the Bears. You just saw that he may be available, and Pittsburgh wanted a lot for him, in order to move him. He was a high second round pick, very, very productive early in his career. This year, he hasn't been as productive. Of course, they had Pickens come in, and they got Johnson. And so, and they like Pickens regardless of the character stuff. But I'll tell you, this is a guy that, when they took Komet, he was, and I like the Komet pick, and I still like the Komet pick, especially if they're going to run the ball like they are, because that son of a bitch can block. And the way I thought of this guy, and part of this was before the combine, when he ran as fast as he did, was that, he was about 235 pounds, and he's 6'4", 235 pounds, got long arms. I thought, wow, you could have this guy be your move tight end, and or a wide receiver, and when you use him as the move, some of the matchup things you can do, matchup advantages that you can do when you get him locked up on a safety, it's like, put points on the board. So, when you look at, and I got his combine numbers here, he was 6'4", he was 229. He's been playing at over 230. He's got big hands, 9 7/8. He ran a 4.42. He had a 40.5 vertical and a 10'6" long jump, and he did 19 reps on the bench. And you know what? He fits into the mold that we were talking about earlier. He can block like a son of a bitch. And he's at Notre Dame, he started off. Now, this is a guy, I know his career really well. He's a Canadian kid from up outside of Vancouver, British Columbia, who, played Canadian football in high school. And then he did end up playing some American football, I think, in a league that played American football. Was recruited because he was a freak athlete, not necessarily because of his talent or what he had done in playing Canadian football in high school. Goes to Notre Dame, knew it was going to take a couple years to develop him to learn the game, but just became a great player at Notre Dame. And he's still young. He's 24 years old, and he's got this year and next year on his rookie contract. I've already seen somebody point out that it might have been Biggs, that you probably figure he's got to be in line for, you're giving up a second round pick. You're not going to let this guy walk in free agency. You're going to try to get a deal done. And, with his size, he fits that mold that they were looking for, the big, fast X receiver, because he, like I said, he can jump out of the building. He's a real good blocker and can just, be, if you want to put him on teams, he's a great cover guy. He can outrun the defense, take the top off. Good player. And I'm a little surprised that Poles would give up a 2 at this point, because like I said, but this, in thinking about it, I think they already had discussions on this going into the trade yesterday. Might have had some preliminary discussions with Pittsburgh on this trade, and then, kept it moving then when they got that other second. Now, which number 2 are they giving up? Are they giving up Stone, or are they giving up Baltimore's? I hope it's Baltimore's, and you keep and to hold on to your own.
Yeah, there seems to be some confusion among media members. Some are saying Baltimore second, some are saying Chicago's. So we won't report on anything until the Bears themselves tell us what's going on. And I got to tell you, at the Senior Bowl, I interviewed Chase Claypool, and my first question to him was, what do you think about some reports that some NFL teams are thinking of moving you to the tight end position? And he stared at me like he was going to kick my ass, and he said, I'm a wide receiver. And that was it, man.
Well, it's funny, and I remember you told me that story, but the move tight end is a wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
He's just playing inside. Sometimes he's lined up on a wing, but so it's like the kid Atlanta took him. What the hell's his name that took him last year? He runs a 4.4.
Kyle Fitz.
Yeah, same thing. I mean, you're talking identical athletes. These are freak athletes that you can do a lot with. And okay, Pelissero said, according to Daryl Smith, Pelissero says it's Chicago's pick. I hope that's not right. I hope it's Baltimore's pick, but what difference does it make? Maybe we hope Baltimore loses. And then
exactly. What do you think about, a lot of people are saying that in essence, this is Roquan for Chase Claypool. That makes it sound pretty good to my ears, because you're acquiring a guy who has another year left on his contract for a guy who was headed towards free agency or the franchise tag. You're also, and the draft picks don't exactly wash each other out, because one's a second, one's a fourth. But I do like if it was Quan for Claypool, I'd be happy with that.
Well, don't forget, you got the 5th round pick and AJ Klein figured into that. So it's all part of the equation. So, I'm just looking at the position they were drafted, and Claypool was drafted in the 40s. I'll tell you exactly what it was in 1 second. He was position number 49. Right. So, and even though he's had very good production, especially his first 2 years, not as much this year, they're getting him at a premium to where he was drafted. But, 62 catches for 869 yards and 2 TDs. Now, this year, you have Mitchell playing quarterback. You got a rookie playing quarterback. You got to throw this out. You got to go back to when Big Ben was there. And
in his rookie season with Big Ben, he caught 60 passes for 9 touchdowns. That's not shabby.
Now, the only thing fans are going to, want this guy to come in and light it up on Sunday. They might have a few plays for him on Sunday, but unless the Steelers system terminology, we've talked about this a lot, unless the Steelers system terminology is similar to this one that they're playing here, it's going to take him some time to get up to speed and be able to play, because of all the site adjustments he's got to make. Like I said, you can spot feed him a little bit, make some plays, put some plays in the playbook for him for this week, get him on the field and hopefully stretch the field a little bit. But it's going to be a couple weeks before he's ready for full-time action.
Yeah.
Probably 3 weeks before, another 3 games. So, they've played 8, so 9, 10, 11, 12, game 12. So 12 through 17, he'll probably be, 100%.
Mm-hmm. Have you heard anything from your circles about Claypool's behavior? I mean, I can't say with any certainty what reports are out there, but I have heard some mumblings that he can be a bit of a malcontent. I don't know if any of that is true. What have you heard anything at all?
There's been some things in Pittsburgh. I don't know exactly what they were. I know at Notre Dame, he was a class act. Mm-hmm. And, no problems with him whatsoever. And, they ran a tight ship there. Now, here's the key. And I put it out in a tweet. Two of his teammates from Notre Dame were on this team,
Hmm.
Komet and Mustafa. That makes the transition that much easier.
That's a good point.
He walks into the locker room. He's got two buddies.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And were both of them the same class? No. Yeah, both of them were in his same class.
Yes, so they were.
They go back. They go back to coming in together as freshmen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember pushing for Claypool to be drafted by the Chicago Bears and preferred him over Cole Kmet, although I wasn't upset with the Kmet selection. But I just figured the incredible speed that Claypool has and the big body, boy, that made him so intriguing as a prospect. And it's good to see that in his career with the Steelers, he really has lived up to those promises. Now, in his second year, when his touchdown numbers receded, obviously had a lot to do with Big Ben and the fact that offense was deteriorating right before our eyes because Ben Roethlisberger was deteriorating. And this season, as you mentioned, with the revolving quarterbacks and so forth, he probably hasn't been able to get going as quickly as possible. But I have great hopes for Chase Claypool, and I really, really love this deal. I think it's great.
No, you're not going to hear a complaint from me. The key to me is you got to get an extension done with the guy. Now, it doesn't have to be this week, but just sometime in the future, and hopefully before the end of next season. And don't forget, you got to take care of Mooney too.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. You got to take care of Mooney. You got to take care of Cole Kmet too, because they were he and as you mentioned, he and Claypool came out the same year, so those contracts
they all came out the same year, I think.
Yep. So all of that money that we've got in salary cap, that can all go pretty quickly just re-signing some of your own guys, right?
Well, yeah. We thought some of it was going to go to Roquan, so it'll be interesting, how they choose to use that money in free agency versus the draft. You've given up. This takes wide receiver out of the equation for day one and day two in the draft. It doesn't, if you're going to go best available on day three and you've got multiple picks on day three, and look at, in fact, one receiver I loved in last year's draft is up there with the cheeseheads and they got him on day three, and that's Dubs. Mm-hmm. And we talked about him on the show. Loved Dubs, and I don't know why part of it was he was hurt all during the combine pro day workout scene. He might have had a pulled muscle or something, so nobody had a time on him. I played at UNLV. Was mostly a vertical receiver at UNLV, but you put the tape on. The tape was exciting. And, big guy who could stretch the field. And you got him late. Got Mooney late. You can find, and in this coming draft, there's receivers out there. You're going to get a good receiver. You're going to get a starter into the third, an immediate starter into the third round. And after that, you're going to get really good developmental guys that got some talent. So it takes care of a big need, and they did it with the one pick they got for Roquan. So they put that to work right away, and that's you got to be happy with that because it helps Justin this year. Mm-hmm. And it better help Justin this year because the defense looks like it might stink the rest of the year.
Yeah, I sent somebody a note. So now the Bears games will be like 50-49. You're going to see scores like that with anticipated decline of the defense because of the missing Quinn and Roquan. And I know this is a difficult question for you to answer because it's speculating, but what do you think this does for the clubhouse? Do you think that they're happier now, or they're still maybe mumbling and grumbling over the losing of two veterans? Based on your experience in the league and being in so many locker rooms and getting the temperature of players during these kind of tumultuous player movement times, What do you think? How do you think the Bears locker room is going to react?
Well, you're dealing with two different sides of the ball. So the loss of Quinn and the loss of Roquan affects the defensive side of the ball.
Okay.
Okay. And, it's not that you don't have friendships on both sides of the ball, but you're dealing, with those two particular players, you're dealing with the defense and how they interact on a day-to-day basis in practice meetings, etc. Now you're bringing in a player that can hopefully upgrade the offense.
Mm-hmm.
It's another big receiver, and I'll tell you what, I was a little skeptical of the Harry trade for a 7th round pick because he didn't play up to expectations in New England, but he wouldn't be the first player. Who's the receiver we were talking about in the show earlier, who down in Texas, Brandon Cooks? He didn't live up to expectations in New England either, and they shipped him out. And he's had a pretty darn good career, just that he can't stay in one place longer than 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
But he looks like he can be that big possession receiver type guy, kind of like an A-Rob was.
Yeah, exactly. Brandon Marshall, another name that comes to mind.
Yeah. He's not quite as tall as Marshall. He's a 6'3" guy, but he's a big 6'3", and Claypool's a big 6'4". I mean, we're talking 230 pounds plus, long arms, and that he's because of his athleticism and his size, he becomes a nightmare for the defense. But again, I don't want to, I want to go one step at a time. He's still got to get acclimated to playing this scheme, and it's not easy to learn.
Right.
You got to be able to make side adjustments at full speed. So patience is the word, just like I've been saying with other things. You got to be patient with this guy. Don't expect him to come in and catch 7 passes for 150 yards on Sunday against Miami, because I doubt that's going to happen.
This has got to be bad news for one player on the team, and that's going to be one of the receivers. My thought is that Brian Pringle, no fault of his own, the injuries have really ruined at least the first half of the season for him. But he might be a guy that's going to have a hard time getting back onto the field with N'Keal Harry's availability now, and then trying to work Claypool back in. I was really excited about Pringle joining the Bears, but he may never get a chance to really prove his value.
No, but I think what you're going to see is what we've been seeing the last few weeks, and everybody's going to be playing. The only guy that is the every down guy is Mooney, and then the other guys have been, EQ has been playing a lot too, especially because of his blocking ability. By the way, there's another teammate. Forgot about that. EQ and Claypool were teammates. Right. So, and to go back to your question before, a new guy coming in, those 3 guys make it a lot easier. He's got relationships. And between EQ and I think EQ was a year ahead of Claypool, but between EQ and Mustafa and Komet, the other guys can, okay, what's this guy like? And you've got friends that can speak highly of him. So it really smooths the transition.
Very good. Free Palestine says Harry and Claypool on the outside and Mooney in the slot, and then Velus Jones is a gadget guy. That lineup there, let's fast forward to 2023 with these guys having a full training camp, working together with Justin Fields and so forth. That lineup there for wide receivers, and then you draft a developmental wide receiver, that all of a sudden looks like it goes from a question mark to a plus, in my opinion. What do you think about the long-term, not long-term as in 10 years, but 2 or 3 years of the wide receiver position, just giving these names up on the screen?
On paper, it looks good. Remains to be seen what they're going to do together as a group. But I think one of the important things, too, is they're young. They're all young. Shit, Bayless might be the old man. He's the rookie.
That's funny. Yeah, unfortunately, he might be. Let's see. Sam Rush says having legit speed and playmaking ability along with our running attack will make this offense scary. Yeah, I mean, the offense I saw against the Cowboys was already approaching scary. You add Claypool, and it could legitimately be scary. We might be seeing a shootout at Soldier Field Sunday with the Dolphins.
Well, yeah, don't put the cart in front of the horse. It's going to take him a little bit. You might have a handful of plays for him where he knows exactly what to do and might not have to make a site adjustment type of thing. Okay, you call the play and say you run a post, make your cut of 20, and that keep it simple for him.
Wow,
because this is. Go ahead.
I was going to say that it's your boy says, as a Steelers fan, you guys got a potential star in your hands. If he keeps on developing correctly, he's 6'4" with 4.3 speed. He is a nice pick. You got that? It's your boy. We're very excited about him. Greg saw him plenty over at Notre Dame, and so we will be seeing a lot of him in Chicago. Now, Sophisticated Thought is saying Bradley Chubb has been traded to the Dolphins. I can't imagine that. Let's get a verification on that. Let me go to the old Twitter machine, which is our news source nowadays for so many things.
I'll say one thing. Chubb hadn't done shit in Denver.
Yep. Broncos are completing a trade of star pass rusher Bradley Chubb, sending him to the Dolphins for at least a 2023 first-round pick, according to Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissaro.
Okay.
So you're not a big fan of him?
He's had flashes, but he hasn't totally lived up to expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And since Von Miller has been gone from, since the middle of last season when he went to the Rams and now he's in Buffalo, he really hadn't done a whole lot.
Brummy Bear, yes, Greg has given the thumbs up to the trade. I think a lot of Bears followers are excited about the prospects of Chase Claypool.
No, the big thing is he's on his rookie contract.
Mm-hmm.
He's already got skins on the wall. He's only 24 years old. Let me see when he's going to do. I got his date of birth somewhere. He just turned 24 in July. He's a young 24.
He's a young blood.
Yep. Young guy who, hopefully just keeps getting better.
Yeah. In terms of learning a playbook from the wide receiver position, that has to be one of the tougher positions to learn a playbook from, right? Particularly in this offense, as you mentioned earlier.
Well, again, and I know I'm repeating myself, but if Pittsburgh's offense, and I don't know anything about Pittsburgh's offense, from the standpoint of terminology and what they're asking the receivers to do, if there's similarity, then the transition won't be that hard.
Mm-hmm.
If the terminology is like the total opposite, here's the thing. See what happens in the Bears scheme for the wide receivers and for Justin Fields is they call a play. Okay. And so you got four receivers involved in that play, say a tight end and three wides, or maybe even a back. And the play calls for 1, 2, 3, and 4 to each run a certain route. But at the snap, the defense does something different from what you think the pre-snap look is or whatever. Now, at full speed, all of 1, 2, 3, 4 got to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's the difficulty. It's the adjustment. And it's a two-way adjustment, and that not only does the receiver have to see it based on the coverage that he sees, but the quarterback's got to see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the other thing about Claypool that I was excited about when he was at Notre Dame, he was an outstanding special teams player.
That's how he started out because, he's a freak athlete and, he's no pussy now. He'll knock your head off.
Yeah. Nomad has a question. He wonders, do you think that Eddie Jackson might ask for a trade given these circumstances with all this turmoil going on with the team?
He can ask all he wants. He's got a big contract.
That's right. He does. It's going to be hard to move.
And I, you know what, his career, let's look at it logically. He's had a resurrection, on his career playing in this scheme. And right now, interceptions, tackles, everything else, he's like the player we thought he was a few years ago. Why the hell would he want to leave?
Yeah. Free Palestine says, would this trade mean that the Bears will go all in for Fields in the offseason, trying to
don't forget you got defensive head coach.
That's right.
And the defense gave up 49 last week, was it? Let's go one step at a time. And they're going to have money. Okay, are they going to go buy some defensive linemen, or are they going to draft defensive linemen? Are they going to buy one or two offensive linemen, or are they going to draft them? And you're going to know the answer about the third week in March, 3 or 4 days into free agency, when you see what they did the first few days of free agency, because they're going to do you take care of needs 2 ways: free agency and the draft. So the direction they go in free agency, look for the opposite in the draft.
Yeah. I agree with Free Palestine when he says Eddie Jackson has got to be loving this situation. He's playing in a defense that is perfectly suited for his skills. We're seeing that with the numbers. We're seeing that with his improved play. We had a question from Sam Rush, which is interesting. We were talking about Claypool learning the offense. And so Sam asked, could another wide receiver tell Claypool his alignment and assignment after the call by JF1? I would say no to that. You don't really want to see on-field coaching going on. That's very disruptive to a team. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you can do it in the puddle, but the adjustments are made at the line of scrimmage when you're coming off the ball.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Let's say it looks like they're in man coverage, based on the alignment. And it looks like straight man across. But then at the snap, the corners, instead of playing press, are dropping back, and they're really in zone. It might even be 3 deep zone or something. So your pre-snap look told you one thing, but the actual defensive play is something else. Now this is where your receivers got to say, okay, and it's an instantaneous thing. Okay, against press, I was doing this route. Now it's zone. Now I'm doing something different.
Yeah.
So I got to know what this is, and make the sight adjustment. And the key is at full speed.
Yeah, good point. Michael Henneman says the wide receivers in free agency aren't that great besides T. Higgins. Seems like Poles is getting ahead of the situation by getting Claypool now, plus 9 games this year to help to build their relationship with Justin. I think that's a really good point. It allows, as you said earlier in the show, Greg, now it allows that wide receiver position to be kind of off the board for the first 2 days of the NFL draft. You pick up a receiver in day 3, you could find a really good developmental wide receiver.
Right, and you're getting a guy a year younger. In free agency, you're going to pay, especially for a guy as talented as Chase Claypool. Okay, you can say, let's use the contract Valdez-Scantling got. What was that, $10 million a year or whatever?
Right.
And he was coming out of his. Well, Claypool's been 10 times more productive than Valdez-Scantling. Okay, right. and on top of that, so he just turned 24 a couple months ago. You still got a youngster here.
Exactly. A question from our man Jordan. He's saying, of all the rumored wide receivers for trade, where did Claypool sit with you? Assuming that DJ Moore, Elijah Moore, Denzel Mims, who I know you're on record no to Mims, Jerry Jeudy, Terrence Marshall. If those guys were all available and you were putting up your big board because the GM asked you to, where would you rank Claypool with those wide receivers?
Well, first of all, I don't believe all those guys were really available. Okay, it's what, 138 right now? How many of those guys got traded so far? Claypool. So, and in all honesty, I didn't think Pittsburgh would be able to move him because it was in print. They want a 2. And I thought, who's going to give up a 2? And what helped the Bears do that is moving Roquan. They got the extra 2. So now they still got today, right now at 1:30, what they had at 11 o'clock yesterday morning.
Mm-hmm.
Before they made, and plus an extra 5. So that allowed them to pay the asking price for Claypool. And so, but to get back to Jordan's thing, I'm not a big fan of little receivers.
I've learned that about you.
No, I mean, a guy who's 6 feet and 185, that's fine. But some of these other guys now, you go back to the 21 draft, and a bunch of these little midgets got drafted real high.
Uh-huh.
How many have been productive?
Not
seriously. How many have been productive?
Maybe
very few. Yeah, they haven't done anything. And now DJ Moore, he just got extended. He was never getting traded. That was strictly a media thing.
Yeah.
They saw him, they traded the running back. And so, they're going to trade DJ Moore. I know Scott Fitter. He was never trading DJ Moore. He just gave him more money. But Elijah Moore, Denzel Mims, he's a guy. Elijah Moore, he's a little guy. You only can play with so many little guys that you get your ass kicked with those guys, physically. Jerry Jeudy's he's a very interesting guy. I don't believe that he's really available.
Yeah. Still on this first contract, tons of upside. I find that hard to believe too.
But I had a ton of respect for George Payton. I've known him for a gazillion years, but I got to question the call he made, and it was his call on the head coach. Because I have never been a fan of that guy. I mean, going back, he was offensive coordinator in Buffalo for a few years, and Hackett and he was at Syracuse before that. He just, he's never done it for me. He hadn't done anything in Denver. And the thing that's scary is they're not doing anything. You got brand new ownership that didn't take control of the team until after the season began in reality. And so how these guys paid $4 billion for that team or something like that? How safe is George's job? How safe is the coach's job? They may say, you know what, we're going to start all over. This is our team. We paid $4 billion. We're going to start all over.
Jordan is absolutely giddy with the acquisition of Claypool. He's been pounding the table for him for weeks now. And he also asked this question: do you have a scouting report for Chase Claypool that you wrote up? Were you doing Pro Football Weekly's draft report in 2020? I want to say.
No, I was in the XFL.
That's right. So you didn't do much scouting of that.
No, but I have seen every game Claypool has played in college. Notre Dame fan. I always watch Notre Dame games. No, he's talented. I mean, he was. In fact, it wouldn't have shocked me if he went in the back end of the first round, especially when I did not expect him to work out. I knew he was going to be a freak athlete. I didn't think he was going to run 4.42, and then he's run under 4.4 on several occasions. I didn't think he, was going to run that good. Jump 40 inches in the air at 230 something pounds. This guy is an explosive freak athlete.
I love him. I love him. Let's take a look at Lance Erline. We've done this before. We've taken a look at one of his reports. We did this with Justin Fields a couple of weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago. And you have respect for Lance, but you don't always agree with him. Fair to say, correct?
Fair to say.
Okay. Well, just look at the weaknesses that he listed for Claypool. Now, this is coming out of college, out of Notre Dame. He listed him as a guy that is going to become a where's the number at? 6.32 will eventually be a plus starter. So let's just go over to the weaknesses. Very little wiggle or juice after the catch. I think that's fair to say about the big guy, isn't it?
No, he's got run after the catch. Would you say he's elusive? No, I wouldn't say that. But he's strong.
Okay. Yeah, very strong. You see that in some of the highlights. Pedestrian release to challenge press. I'm not sure I agree with that based on.
No, I don't agree with that, and especially with his strength, he can get off. With the press, he can get off the press easily. He's already proven that,
right,
in the league.
Average getting in and out of the break point. That one I can't comment on. What are your thoughts?
No, I disagree with that too. See, here's what happens, and I understand where Lance is coming from. Is that you got a tall, long receiver. Okay, so those guys, remember I said earlier, I didn't think he was going to run 4.40, 4.38, which he ended up running. Why? Because he's a taller guy, a little bit of a strider, so you're not a quick stepper, in other words. But with every step you take, you're gaining more ground because you have a longer stride. And so you have deceptive speed and deceptive quickness. So, again, he's proven at the NFL level that he can get separation because he's gotten it. So now, was the passing game at Notre Dame, because, his final year at Notre Dame, he just jumped out. He had a great year. And we already explained part of that. This guy, was born in Canada, brought up in Canada, wasn't really exposed to real American football until he got to Notre Dame. So he was 2 steps behind when he got into college. So, reality, he's still growing.
Yeah. Wow. Well, he's definitely going to be growing here in Chicago. He's going to see a lot of passes once he
and I mean growing as a player, not physically.
Right. Let's see a couple more of these weaknesses so that we can comment on. Let's go full.
Yeah, then we got to get going pretty soon because I got a couple things I got to do here.
Yeah,
unless there's another trade,
exactly. Let's get he can be tardy with catch-ready hands. That, to me, for a wide receiver is very concerning. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't even know what he means. That means that getting his hands up?
Yeah, getting them ready for a catch. Thumbs facing each other, fingers low.
Here's the answer to that. Notre Dame's wide receiver coach, when he was there, was a guy, I think his name was Del Alexander, and he's one of the first guys Marcus Freeman let go when he became got elevated to the head coaching position. He was a horrible recruiter, and he wasn't a very good position coach. So again, I'm going back to what's his background. And once you get into, do you have the physical traits to do what you're supposed to do at the NFL level? And that's without question, yes. Okay, so and now it's learning the proper things to do. And now this is his, third year in the league. He's already grown quite a bit.
Yeah, indeed. All right, I think we should leave it there. 40 minutes talking about Chase Claypool. We could do it for another hour. We'll probably do it tonight on the Dan and Aldo Bear, their social. I think Danny Shimon is going to join us. He just reached out to me and said, I'm available tonight if you need me, and we will need him. He is the protege of Gabriel. How long did you teach that class on scouting?
Well, Danny was at the live class.
Okay.
So I mean, there was an online version, with the videos and stuff.
Right.
Then we did a live class right here in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And there's maybe 23, 24 people over a weekend downtown. And it was a lot of fun, and it was like in fact, Mike McCartney, who we had on the show, he came in, I think, on day one. And, we talked about the agent-player relationship and negotiating contracts and stuff. So it was a great time.
Sounds like a blast. I wish I would have been there. All right. Just a note for people watching on video and those who listen to the audio version of this show. I'm going to edit both of these shows, the one we did earlier in the day with Greg and this one, edit them together so that way you don't have to download two different shows with Greg Gabriel talking about Roquan Smith, Chase Claypool, and so much more. Greg, you're the absolute best. We'll talk to you very soon. And you might
do I get double time for this?
You get triple time.
Oh, okay. 3 times 0 equals 0.
Exactly.
That's what they tell you in kindergarten when you're first learning math.
That's right. You know what? Speaking of triples, if the Bears make another move, I'm going to call you. You're going to pull a triple today. You really are the best. Thank you very much. And we'll see you all. We see everyone later. Take care.
See you later.